I have procedural questions. Since we have violations next on unfinished business for similar properties, can they be combined into one hearing, or do we have to take each separately?
You can combine them into one hearing, but make separate motions for each case.
Thank you. Then I will read both cases together and put them before the board. The first case is case number 19-74, 527. Code Compliance Officer, Officer McCarthy, respondent, Robert L. and Delta M. Corsini. Address of violation is 717 West Marion Avenue. Violation of Chapter 9, Section 9-2, Sub A, and Chapter 26, Section 8.14, Sub B, outside storage. The second case is case number 20-77, 115, Code Compliance Officer, Officer McCarthy, on behalf of Officer McDaniel, respondent, Robert L. and Delta M. Corsini. Address is 717 West Marion Avenue. Violation of Chapter 9, Section 9-2, Sub A, and Chapter 26, Section 8.14, Sub B, outside storage. Are the respondents present?
No.
Okay.
This is a request for reduction, so essentially the burden is on the applicants to explain why they're entitled. But I think, David, you're going to testify that they're now in compliance, which was the problem when they were here last time. Is that right?
Yes. For the record, Dave McCarty, Code Compliance Supervisor. I've been sworn. I inspected the property yesterday. The property is in compliance at this time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Weiner.
when did the property come into compliance, do you know?
It was within the last week and a half or 2 weeks ago. I know that Alan had been in contact with the new owner of the property, and they had made arrangements to get it cleaned up.
So at the last meeting, the old owner was going to see why the new owner had stuff on the outside, was storing stuff on the outside, and that took a week and a half to
I don't
determine?
know whose stuff that it was out there. It was testified last time that that wasn't their stuff, and it was told to Officer McDaniel, which I can't testify because I didn't hear it myself, that it was not their stuff, it was the respondents' stuff.
Well, and it really makes no difference. The respondent is here. Allow the respondent, Mr. Chairman, board to make their case for the reduction. If you have any questions as part of that argument, you're certainly entitled to ask those questions. Our concern at the last time was that as a requirement for getting a reduction, the property has to be in compliance before they can seek a reduction. And so the property, the hearing was continued to this hearing to give them the opportunity to bring it into compliance, irrespective of who might have been out of compliance.
Thank you.
One more question. Mr. Levin?
Sorry.
If I recall from the last meeting, this property was sold, and this is the old owner, and she or they were going to the new owner. Do they have the right to speak for the new owner?
Well, this was the person who was brought before you last time was the prior owner, but was the tenant who was asking for a reduction. And I think there was an obligation or an agreement of some sort, perhaps, for the previous owner to resolve the violation so that there wouldn't be a lien on the property for the new owner. And everything would have been fine if the property had been in compliance at that time. That's why we're back here, because it is now in compliance. And I think those are fair questions to ask of the person who has the burden of demonstrating entitlement to the reduction.
I guess what I'm trying to ask, and maybe not doing a good job, is if the property was sold and we had a $15,000+ lien on it, in whose hands is the lien, the old owner or the new owner?
Well, the lien runs with the land.
Right,
So it's the it would ultimately be the responsibility of the new owner.
Right.
To deal with that.
okay.
But there was an escrow held at closing, they testified last month. So
Yeah,
the monies
I
are in
mean,
escrow.
That's really not our concern, but the lien runs with the land. And the statute does require that the seller provide notice to the buyer of the existence of the code violations. So that if the buyer assumes the property with that obligation, the idea would be that typically then the buyer would assume the lien and then be responsible for working that out with the seller or whatever to get that lien, removed, which, you know, as David's pointed out, is probably the reason why the money was held in escrow. We don't know that. I mean, we weren't part of that transaction. That was testimony, I believe, at the last hearing under oath. But I hope that answered your question.
Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, would you please state your name and whether you've been sworn and your relationship to the property?
Delta Corsini, yes, I have been sworn. That was my house, and I sold it, closed on it on April 24th. I took care of every single thing that needed to be taken care of. The U-Haul truck you see right there, all of my items are still in there, in the house. I purchased the house from Belle Avery, the woman who purchased my house. And it's just a matter of emptying out my things, but I have taken care of all of that. And all I would like is, they're holding a substantial amount of money, and I've already taken care of everything.
Well, you've taken care of it, but it's actually taken well over a year to have those items taken care of.
I have lost my husband, my mother, my father.
We understand that, but that still, you know, as far as all your neighbors are concerned, you know, they're still having to look at that property.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm on disability, and I begged my doctor to let me out of the hospital last night so I could be here today. I have a lung infection, a respiratory infection, and pneumonia, and I signed myself out to be here. I can't afford to take another loss.
I got a question for Code Compliance Officer Cardy. Is it, prior to Code Violation 19-74527, which is the first one, did this property and this owner have violations prior to that?
There have been previous violations. of the
Thank you.
property.
So it seems, Ms. Corsini, that even prior to these violations and prior to, you know, again, I'm sorry to hear about the passing of your husband, but there was violations of the same nature back before these violations.
I understand that, and I'm not saying, you know, erase everything, but I think the amount of money is unbelievably high. I believe you're holding something like almost $17,000.
Well, I don't know if it's at the total fine, but that may be something you have within your purchase and sales agreement as to what they're withholding.
No.
I don't know what the total fine right now is.
That was it.
Around 13.
Well, one is 15, this
Yeah,
first
one-
one is $1,528.75.
It's like
What are
six,
the
And then
amounts
the
with
second one is
interest?
Yeah.
11,000.
it's like 12.5 for us. But I still, you know, as Mr. Shaloff said, regardless, and I empathize with your health situation, your loss, but there have been representations by parties, by you and by people who were here on your behalf, that the citations would be corrected.
They were correct. If Mr. McDaniels even said they were corrected, and then it went back. Then it was corrected again.
That's the point, is the fact that it was corrected and then it was permissible to return the property to the condition that was cited. Why would that happen? I'm not asking you to answer that question. It's a rhetorical question. It's just that there seems to be a repetition
No,
of
I haven't,
correct, fixed,
I
or-
understand that, and my daughter kept bringing things in.
May I ask, are you still in residence at that property, or do you no longer live there?
I don't live there, but everything I own is in there.
So is the house, does anybody live in the house currently?
No,
The house is empty,
the house is empty.
and you have another residence where you plan to move this
Yes.
stuff when you can?
I only have until the 30th to get my items out, or the doors are gonna be locked and I'm not gonna be able to get them out.
And the U-Haul truck is gonna go with is going to.
That's what
place to get out.
that's why it's there.
Has the truck been there for a period of time?
No, truck has been there for 2 days, a day and a half.
Okay.
I don't have movers, it's my granddaughter's moving my things.
Well, I know, I don't know if this is the time to do this because because testimony is being made, but the purposes of our code compliance in this case is not to be punitive, but to ensure that these things don't happen again. And I think that in this case, we can be fairly certain that's not gonna happen again because
Oh, okay.
the petitioner is moving out and everything's in compliance now. I think our goal has been accomplished, and to penalize this person or not provide some sort of relief, I think would be misjustice.
Any further discussion on this matter? Any questions for the respondent?
Are you making a motion?
I was making a comment.
Yeah, well, you can make a
Are you gonna
motion.
make a motion on? what
Yeah, I'll
you-
make a motion. And I don't know the proper way to make the motion, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna.
just basically the sheet that they handed out.
Yeah,
Just go ahead.
I don't have my glasses, so I can't read it, so I'm gonna ad-lib it.
That'd be fine.
I'm gonna propose that, make a motion that the respondent pay costs of approximately $22 and $24, whatever it is, add them up, and a fine of $250.
Mr. Chairman, may I request that maybe
I'm in the middle of making a motion.
maybe somebody else can make the motion that can actually read the bill? Because we can't just say approximately.
Okay.
The order's got to be specific, and I apologize for
Well, somebody can help me out.
I'll make, Mr. Chair, I will make a motion, and
Counselor, would
if,
you please assist
if
Mr.
people don't,
Nelson
if anyone
in his
disagrees with.
endeavors?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, I will. Motion to find that the fine, reduction of fine request is approved, and the fine in the amount of $1,528.75 plus 6.83% applicable interest issued in the previous order of January 27th, 2021, plus additional case costs incurred in the amount of $12.03 is reduced to $1,000. And it is further ordered that the respondent shall submit full payment within 5 days of receipt of this order. And after payment, the city shall issue a satisfaction of lien, which shall be recorded by the respondent at their sole cost, expense, and it is further ordered that if the respondent fails to submit full payment to the city within a time specified herein, the remaining unpaid fine in the amount of $1,528.75 plus 6.83% applicable interest issued in the previous order of January 29th, 2020 shall remain valid.
A motion has been made for case number 19-74-527 to reduce the fine to $1,000 plus applicable costs. Is there a second to that motion?
I got a procedural question. Can we make the motion for both of the cases at
No,
once?
we have to do
No,
them
it's going to do it
separately.
separately.
That was already explained.
Secondary.
The motion has been made and second that we shall reduce the fine to $1,000 plus costs. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, I think $1,000 is probably, I would like to amend the motion to reduce the reduction to $750 plus costs.
I think you need a second in order for any
Made the
discussion.
motion, so we have to amend it.
You seconded it? Okay.
Motion to amend the original motion to reduce the fine to $750 has been made. Is that motion second?
Well,
Well,
I think.
Second,
I think the
Jardine.
It's
first
my,
thing
it's
that
my
has to be done-
motion, so I would be the one that would actually have to reduce it, have to
Or
agree to
agree,
reduce
yeah,
it.
agree to
Okay.
accept them.
I'll agree to reduction of $750 instead of 1,000.
Now because usually I thought you had to pass the request for a motion and then it was considered by the party. But anyway, motion before the board is that the fine be reduced to $750 plus costs.
Second, Jardina.
And that motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion is carried. Mr. Shalfo, will you make a motion for the second case?
Well, I think it'd be fair to see if Mrs. Corsini has anything further to add before we go right to a motion.
Christine, do you want to say anything further about this matter? This is on the second case.
Second case, the last time I was here, Mr. McDaniel said that I had taken care of everything, but then my daughter went back to get her items that she had left behind there, and that's why the van was there, and that's why everything is there. My daughter has since gotten all of her things out. There hasn't been anything in that driveway since 2 days after the last time I was here. The U-Haul is mine. The flatbed that goes in there is not mine, it's the new owner's. But there hasn't been anything in the driveway but moving vehicles.
Mr. Chair, would you like to make a motion, please?
Please, sir.
Mr. Chair, before you make the motion, please, may I ask you a question? I'm kind of confused. The last fine was as of January 29, 2020. This one is October 28, 2020, and we are now in June of '21. My confusion is how long it took to get compliance, whether it be from the new owner, the old owner, the daughter, the mother, the whole family. I mean, we're talking almost a year here.
I understand that, and Mr. McDaniels, the last time we were here, he said that I complied, that I did have everything taken care of. Then my daughter put things back in the garage, in the driveway, and then I had her remove them. Then she put them back in, and I had her remove them again. Every time, and then Mr. McDaniel said it was up to compliance until that morning when he went there. And she had, it's not that she put things in the driveway, she was taking her things out of the garage and putting them into her van. And Mr. McDaniels took that picture. But he had said up until that point, I had been in compliance.
Okay, I'm sorry, go
Any
ahead.
further questions of the respondent before? Please.
I make a motion to find that the reduction of fine request is approved. The fine in the amount of $11,007.65 plus 5.35% applicable interest issued in the previous order of October 28, plus additional case costs incurred, the amount of $12.03 is reduced to $5,000, and it is further ordered that the respondent shall submit full payment within 15 days of the entry of this order. After payment, the city shall issue a satisfaction of lien, which shall be recorded by the respondent at their sole cost and expense, and is further ordered that if the respondent fails to submit full payment to the city within the time specified herein, the remaining unpaid fine in the amount of $11,007.65 plus 5.35% applicable interest issued in the previous order of October 28, 2020 shall remain valid.
I'll second the motion.
Motion has been made to reduce the unpaid fine of $11,007.65 to $5,000 plus applicable costs. Any discussion on the motion?
I'd like to make a motion to reduce that amount from $5,000 to $750.
Well,
And
you-
we
well,
remind
you
the
don't-
members of the board that we are not here to collect money from the city of Punta Gorda. We're here for the purposes of bringing people, places into compliance with our code.
Before you go too
There is
far.
a motion and a second on the floor. If the appropriate procedure would be to ask the moving party if he would accept or entertain an amendment to his motion. If he says no, then it would be inappropriate to have any further motions other than the one that's on the floor. So that's where we're at. As part of the discussion, ask if the moving party would be amenable to modify his motion.
I'd like to ask that you agree to reduce this fine from $5,000, or at least open up the discussion amongst the members.
Well, there would be a discussion.
Consensus.
There would be a discussion.
Yeah.
And as part of that discussion, if you argued that it was too much and you were going to vote against the motion, maybe you would persuade others to equally vote against the motion, at which time there would be an opportunity for you to make a new motion based on what you think the appropriate reduction should be.
I would like to suggest 2,500. I think I
What,
agree
Ms.
that our goal is not to be
This is part of the discussion.
money collecting, but we also have been, this has been actually going back almost 2.5, 3 years worth of in compliance, out of compliance. So my suggestion would be certainly that there should still be a fine, but that I would be more comfortable with 2,500.
I feel what Paul Saccoletto brought up is appropriate.
I'm sorry, Paul's motion.
That's my motion. I think $5,000 is appropriate. I think $750 is woefully insufficient as a deterrent. And I'm willing to consider a number somewhere between 4 and 5, but I'm not willing to go below 4.
How did we, may I ask how we got to the amount of $11,000 on this, and how that was calculated for the initial?
In the original, it was in your packet, the original orders, and X number of days times $250, that's where the number comes from.
And it was a repeat violation, so most likely when we issued the order on the second time, because it's a repeat violation, we can go up to $500 a day. So most likely, being a second one, that we did increase it significantly.
Motion's on the floor. To reduce the fine.
I am willing to amend my motion to the amount of $4,000 for the reduction to 4,000.
I want to reiterate that, this was a repeat violation, and there was a violation before the prior violation that we reduced. So I think your initial $5,000, or reduction to $5,000 is really lenient.
Mr. Chairman, so that the record is clear, perhaps you might take a vote on the motion that's on the table. If that doesn't survive, then there could be a second motion.
I'd like to suggest that, since there has been a second member has discussed reducing it to $2,500.
Well, it's-
Well, let's take,
Well, that's Paul's.
if
I
the
would be
motion
comfortable with
that's on the
4,000.
thing fails, then you can make a
Well,
motion to reduce it.
I'm just saying to try to build consensus.
Well,
So
let's
it's
see what happens,
something that fails.
let's see what happens with the motion, and then we can go from there.
I'd be
Mr.
willing to-
Chair, I've amended my motion to set the reduction in fine to $4,000. Otherwise, the rest of it is the same.
Is there a
I second the motion, Jordina.
Okay, a motion has been made, amending the original motion, that the fine will be reduced to $4,000 plus payment of applicable costs. And that motion has been seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Having none, since we've gone through it, A vote on that, all those in favor of the motion as presented to the board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the motion as presented, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
There are 2 nay votes, the motion is carried. The next thing is staff comments.
You want to give them a minute?
No.
Does staff want to get with Mrs. Corsini?
Beg pardon?
Do you guys want to get with Mrs. Corsini?
Do you want to take time to get with Ms. Corsini, or can we proceed to staff comments?
You can proceed.
Thank you.
You're basically done.
Are there any staff comments?
No, sir.
Are there any board comments?
Yeah, I have one. In going through these, the fines and the fine reductions, where can